to get it live on yours?
I think so. I'm gonna check my profile right now. See where
Sick.
we're going, but it looks
And
like I'm
while you,
live.
while
Yeah.
you do that, I'll just I'll intro to our builders what this is in case you haven't heard. So basically, this is our weekly asterisk, depending on availability, builders hour with Sonic. So the idea is to basically allow for the builders in our ecosystem who are most of the time heads down, not really super public all the time, but also like building really cool stuff and have really cool stuff to share, to have a spotlight every week. So basically, they will be able to show their products, their services, how they interoperate with other protocols on the chain. And the idea is you as a builder should hopefully take some value from this. And maybe there's an idea that sparks out of one of these sessions that how you can interoperate with one of these protocols, use one of these products, etc. And then sometimes there's some information that you may not get elsewhere about what's coming on the horizon, that kind of thing. So that's sort of what the premise of this is. And so this week we have Billy Jitsu from API3. Billy is really he's been close friends with some people on the team for a little while. He's an awesome guy. I met him a little earlier, and he was basically he has some really interesting stuff to share and to teach us. I'm really excited to learn from him as well. So before I go too far in my own intro of you, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yep. Yeah, for sure. Hi, I'm Billy. Billy Jitsu on the streets or the Twitter or X, whatever you guys call it now. So yeah, I dev relations for API3. We do price feeds in short, like that's the plain English language. We do price feeds, similar to what you've probably seen with Chainlink, Pith, or Redstone. But yeah, I'm here to teach you something that goes above and beyond. Me personally, I've been a user since maybe 2017, and then developer slash 2021. And kind of fun fact, in the early Phantom days and the Spooky Swap and Spirit Swap, one of my first contracts that I ever deployed was Andre's like Dungeons and Dragons game, where like you had to pick a character and like level it up once a day to get your missions and stuff, and the community kind of built around it. And I didn't want to log in every time to like click to level up or send him on a mission. So like somebody had wrote a script and deployed it onto Phantom. And so that's literally how I started with Phantom. And then the whole thing on Guy Swap and all that stuff, like way back, or Guys Finance when they opened up Aave. And it's so crazy to see like now I'm here on Sonic, right? Just doing a workshop. So really cool
That's
to like see
that's
where
so
we go.
awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know,
But
gaming I think is really something that unites sort of a lot of the builders in the space that I've met. Like a lot of them, I think I mentioned this on the other one as well on a previous episode, but like an outsized percentage of the builder population were MMO gamers back in the day, and then they sort of learned economy, they learned trade and all this kind of stuff, and then they became programmers, and then they started building. I think like it's sort of digital currency translates from economy-based MMOs into these types of industries really, really well, and I think that's sort of why people self-select that way. So that's super cool to hear about the Dungeons and Dragons story.
yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, I'm an RPG player. I have like different metaverses people say in my life. Like people don't know that I'm a dev outside Twitter, I guess. So like never people would never guess it. So like I have different life, but I used to be like an avid gamer, actually competitive for a bit on there. But I really love like RPG games, and so like being
Would
able
you
to
what,
do that on
what
chain.
did you play competitively?
RTS games like
Oh,
StarCraft,
okay, okay. Yeah,
Battle for Middle Earth.
yeah.
Yeah, so I used to like click a lot. So
And,
yeah, yeah, really, really cool stuff. But yeah,
yeah,
nowadays I don't even have time to play. Like I have
yeah,
games that I'll buy them and then like I want to play them and I'll play them for an hour on the weekend, and then I'll have an idea that I want to build, and then that
yeah.
it just sits there.
It's
Yeah,
a tragedy
yeah,
because when you're like 7, you feel like time is infinite. Like
yeah,
you could just come back from school every day for the rest of
yeah,
your life and just play.
yeah,
And it's like then you realize when you're an adult that there's no time to do anything.
yeah.
Yeah, unfortunate.
It's
Uh,
the price of growing up, I guess. But
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, for sure.
today is going to be pretty cool. I'm going to get into like the slideshow in a little bit, but kind of wanted to introduce like my style of workshop, and how I became a DevRel. When I first started learning the code, it was frustrating, right? Like it was all during COVID, and I kind of did YouTube University in a sense where I'm just like learning from workshops and workshops. And what I noticed was I would want to build a project, and then I would search it. Sometimes I didn't even know what to ask. And I have this idea in my head. I want to build it. So let me find the tutorials to build it. I'd watch 1 hour videos and they'd all stop at the same spot. It was like they were copy pasting each other. Here's how to make a token. And then, all right, we'll tune in next time. And then there's never a next time. And I'm like, where's the next video? And it never happens. So because of that frustrations, I have more of a teaching style that's more complexity. And then DevRels tend to like just show their own stuff, right? Like I'm not going to shove API 3 stuff down your throat the entire time. I want to show you cool things that you could do, and then sprinkle a little bit of API 3 in there to show you like why you should use us and everything. But you're not watching because you want to learn about API 3. You want to learn some skills. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. And then also with API 3. So that's kind of my goal for this workshop series on here. But this is how I think it works. I don't know if it sucks. So if I suck, tell me that I do, and I'll change it. So until then,
I
we'll
will
just get
do.
ready with the slideshow. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I just want to say something before you start. Just like I think the point you made about the tutorials being super repetitive and that kind of thing is super true for the space. There's just not so much valuable information because there's not so much you can do at a very beginner level in contract dev. Really, I think there's like a few hello world type contracts that people go through again and again. And I think that what you presented to me earlier this week was super intriguing because I feel like it could actually bring value to builders. So I'm super excited to hear about it. And yeah, you remind me of that guy, the ninja guy on YouTube that I used to learn from when I was trying to learn Java back in the day. Like you're super animated. I feel like the energy's good. So yeah, take it away.
Yeah. Again, if anybody has any questions or if there's comments or whichever, throw them out there. I can chew gum and like, talk at the same time. So yeah, go for it. But
I'm just going to drop off, Billy, so I can give you more real estate, and I'll come
okay.
on when I want to talk.
Sure. So again, we are API 3. We are oracles that pay you, and that is going to make sense a little bit towards later. I'm like, how can something pay me? I'm going to explain that later, but just know we do price feeds, right? Like not to make it overcomplicated or make it super scientific. We give you a price feed for your smart contract, and that's what we're going to do today. So I am your developer support. I'm developer advocate, DevRel, whatever title you want to make up for me. Feel cool. This is my X account, probably one of the easier ways to reach me. I'm pretty active on it, but I don't think DMs are working on X today. So good luck on that one. But if you like satire with some technical and some DeFi stuff, like I'm a major DeFi guy. That's what motivated me to even learn. So like LP positions, borrow, leveraging against your assets to do an LP position and then pay it back. That's my life. So I do a lot of stuff with that. If you like Telegram, it's the same thing, Billy Jitsu on there. So hit me up. Make sure to tag me because I got so many messages. I'll get to you, but I do get to you. So just in case. And so first workshop, like we discovered today, is going to be the fundamentals of API 3. How to use a price feed, get it to your smart contract. We're going to be done with that in like maybe 10 minutes. Really, really simple. And then we want to take it up a little bit, right? We want to learn how to use adapters for your code. Let's say you have this cool project, you saw it on another chain, you want to bring it over to Sonnet Network, but let's say, they don't have the Oracle that you need specifically for it, but API 3 does. Or you want to bring a whole new borrow lending dApp to here and you're like, oh, I don't want to refactor my code or get another audit. No problem. You can use adapters for your code. We also are V3 compatible. So, I'm going to show you different options that you can do with that as well. So that is pretty much what we're going to be doing for today. Second workshop is Oracle extractable value. That sounds pretty complicated. It's what sets our price feeds apart from other price feeds. Just to do a quick one, and this one's going to take a whole hour workshop to explain, is everybody does a price feed for you. So we all do something, the same Pepsi, Coke, whatever your flavor is. OEV is what allows us to pay you. So we all know what MEV is or what MEV is about, right? People that are bribing validators in order to, get an advantage in the space. Well, we do that in the Oracle space, the ability to update your own price feed to the most exact price to run your own liquidation. So we'll be covering that in detail, and then you'll be an expert on how oracles work, push and pull. Third workshop is usually what gets people excited. We're actually going to fork and deploy Aave. So we're going to learn how to basically throw our own Aave built-in tool. And we're going to go through, that's going to be like cut into 3 different workshops. First thing we're going to do is just deploy it, learn how to like list our own token assets, get all the setup ready to go, and then launch it. The second one is we're actually going to go ahead and create some positions. We're going to learn some terminology like what is collateral, what is debt, loan to value, liquidations. And we're going to perform a very, very basic liquidation with an EOA wallet, which is not what you would do in real world. you're going to do that, as for practice to understand. It's just a simple function call. You're literally calling a function and how that all works. And then on the third workshop of Aave, we are going to do a liquidation with OEV. So we're building up from that workshop 1, 2, 3, and then we're going to liquidate that. Then on the fourth workshop series, we are going to do flash loans, right? You know how to liquidate now, but I highly doubt that anybody in the space is walking around with a couple $1 million ready to pay back loans for somebody else in some random platform, right? So that's where flash loans are from. So it is one of the cool things about this whole cryptocurrency space is the ability to borrow millions and millions of dollars for 10 to 12 seconds at a time and then do whatever you want with it, right? If there is an arbitrage or money making opportunity, and you don't have money, borrow it, right? Borrow it for a couple seconds, pay it back, pay a small fee, and then walk away with the profit. So we're going to learn how to do that. I do that on Tenderly. So that way you can learn how to use Tenderly tool, know that that even exists, and then learn how to run simulations, forking your own chain. If you get stuck in, trying to get testnet tokens, or, you're begging for the faucet for more 0.01, which actually Sonic was pretty good with it. But, there's a lot of chains where you can like begging for testnet tokens. You can run your own Tenderly fork and then get unlimited tokens for whatever you need. So that is a nice, tool to work with, especially if you're doing smart contract debugging. And a lot of people use that for war rooms for hacks and stuff. And then finally, on the final part of the workshop, we're going to put it all together, right? We're going to create the position on Aave. We're going to liquidate it with OEV smart contract, and we're going to update the Oracle with the flash loan, and then, pay it all back. And then boom, we are searchers. We know how to make money. Like at the end of the day, if you do all this step by step, you can learn the skills to actually make money, right? Not get a job, make money. So that's kind of the goal of the day for this. But today we're keeping it simple. Right, it sounds very exciting and everything, but the first thing you need to do is like actually get a price feed to your smart contract in order to understand this. So workshop breakdowns for this is understanding how oracles work, what is the Ethereum isolation, how do we solve it at API3, and then setting up your smart contract. And then we're just going to pick a feed in the market. We're going to look at the market to see how we get like an ETH USDC feed or a wrap BTC feed into our market. So why do we even have this problem? Why do we even have oracles? Is like Ethereum doesn't talk to anything in the outside world, right? Like, gosh, to put an era time, or I guess age me into like a boomer, is there was a time where Xbox could not play with PlayStation network people, right? If you had Xbox, you can only play with Xbox people. If you had a PlayStation, you can only play with PlayStation people. My friend had an Xbox, I had a PlayStation. We can never play with each other, right? Because we never communicated with each other. So Ethereum doesn't know what the price of with the price it is outside of it, right? It only knows things in base of ETH. So is ETH $2,000? Is ETH $5,000? We don't know. So as an oracle, we bring that outside data and we put that data on chain for people to use. So now in a borrow lending dApp like Aave or Compound or Venus, they know that if you put in 1 ETH, right, it's about 2,500 right now, you can borrow so much USDC based on that value of that 1 ETH, right? Without an external oracle, it would not know how much USDC value that you could borrow. And so we do it with something called AirNode, which is basically a backend REST API. And then we have our AirNode system, and it goes into your smart contract. A lot of people do things differently. This is a first party, so we don't actually provide the data ourselves. We get it from very high respected folks in the space, CoinGecko being the most prominent one that we get our data feeds from. So what is a DAPI? That's a fancy word for decentralized APIs. Basically, they're just price feeds, just price feeds on there. So we aggregate our sources together. We get them from all these locations. We aggregate it into a single price feed based on the medium average, and then we give you your price feed in ETH USD, wrap BTC USD, Uni USD, whatever token you're looking for. We have a ton of them all together, and you can prove each one where each source came from, so you're never guessing, who did a bad feed. You hear all these hacks or these like misreports. Knock on wood, since inception, I think like 5 years ago, since the inception, we have never had a misreport, 0 misreports on any Oracle feed. So like that is something I wear proudly. We take security very seriously on there because that could be detrimental for your dApp. So I have an example here. I'm going to leave this up for a little bit, but I'm also going to send it in the DM so you can share it in the chat. But this is going to give you the example of a basic repo on here. Today, I'm going to use it on Remix. If it's working, if not, I'll switch over to VS Code. But I want everybody to be able to use it and show how easy it is on Remix. So I'm going to leave this for about 2 more seconds, and then I'm going to grab that price feed example gist and just pop it into the secret comments, so then we can post it in here. So give me 1 second, and let's get to work. So I'm going to kill this out, minimize that, and we are on Remix. Okay, so any questions so far? We looking good? I'm going to take the silence as yay.
I was just checking, I was checking the comments. There's one spam comment so far.
Okay, perfect. We know their AI agents are alive. Cool. So as we're doing this, you're going to see that this is just a basic copy paste off the gist. If you are someone that likes more of a full repo, I do have a VS Code repo that you can fork and use that goes through the whole thing. You can use this video as reference. It's a little bit more scripted, so you can go one by one. And if we have time, I'll just go through it really quick at the end. But there's 2 options here, and I'll throw that at the end. But yeah, this is what it looks like. So I literally just went ahead and went to Remix, created a little work area, and I call it pricefeed.sol. And I've literally copied and pasted this GitHub gist into the location. And let's get into it. Let me make this bigger. And then let's see what is up. Okay, so let me minimize this. It's a 2-function thing, and actually you don't even need 2 functions, but we're going to make it simpler. And the only thing you really need on here is this interface. But let me mention something really quick here. You'll notice that I'm using Progma Solidity 819. And is this big enough for everybody to see? Like, is that visible?
Yeah, it's good now that you zoomed in, I think. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So I'm using 819 because some L2s, some forks don't have the Shanghai fork. Or yeah, is that the right? So like push 0 might not be supported in some of your chains. So if I used 821 and up, or 820 and up, and then with the Open Zeppelin V5, you might have errors deploying. It'll give you like a weird arrow because like push 0 is not supported. So if you use 819 and below, it basically works on every chain. If you are working specifically and you know push 0 works on your chain, you can use up to like 827 or 828 it is right now, and it's compatible. But because of demos and someone that may watch this YouTube, I wanted to make sure to mention that I'm using 819 specifically right before the Shanghai fork, so I know that it works on every chain, every deployment, anywhere that you use.
Valuable, really valuable info. I mean, it's
Yeah.
just like such a niche thing, but like super valuable. Nice.
Yeah, yeah. Again, when I'm trying to deploy on different chains, I'm like, hey, what happened? You know, I'm like, what's going on? Who broke it? And then I realize, oh, okay, got it. So let's break it down piece by piece. The only thing you really need on here is this import API3 contracts, API3 server. You're literally copy and paste. It's a long path. And all that is an interface. You're not installing a library. If you notice, for smart contract developers, is not saying is, API3 contract. It's purely an interface that we use just to make your life easier. Just import it, and that way you don't have to like fill up your entire contract with interfaces. So we have this just one import. You'll have the ownable, and you'll notice that I'm using Open Zeppelin contracts 493. Anything before 5 because of the whole Shanghai fork thing. So you'll notice that my ownable is a little bit different. Instead of the constructor, I just, my deployment is the owner. So the only reason we need that is for our set proxy, and I'll cover that in just a little bit. But in a very basic minimal one, you would just need this in order for it to make it work. But let me go ahead and paste it down because I have this ownable. And the only thing we're going to do is we have this public address. That's going to be our epoxy address. This is going to be the price feed that we're going to use to tell our smart contract we want this specific price feed and this one only, right? And so we have this one function that all it's going to do is going to set the price feed address so that we can change it every time. So if we want to read ETHUSD, we set this function to say, hey, we want the ETHUSD price. If we want wrap BTC, we go back and set this function to the wrap BTC price, right? And the only thing we really need on there to read the price is this read data feed function. And it's going to return us 2 values: the value of the asset, which is the price, and the timestamp of when it was last updated, right? So ETHUSDC, let's say it's 2,500 right now. When was it last updated? 20 minutes ago. Cool, right? Timestamp is important because if you are doing a borrow lending DApp and the price goes stale, let's say API3 servers go down somehow, right? And the price hasn't updated in 24 hours, something's wrong. So, you got to protect your DApp and yourself to make sure, hey, if the timestamp hasn't updated in 24 hours, perform some lockdowns in there. So those are the 2 vital things that you need. For a lot of folks that do a lot of projects or hackathons, I converted this into 256 because it comes in an int 224. So I just do a typecast on here, so you can see an example of if you wanted to typecast it for UN 256 for whatever needs that you have, you can. But it comes in a default in 224. It can go negative, but we never have it. But just in case, that's just something I want to point out. But for simplicity, I have typecasted it to UN 256 on here. So that's it. That's pretty much all you need to actually get a price feed from API 3. Pretty simple.
And we give a tiny little tidbit to people as well. The reason that data from oracles is required, you need to do this to get the data on chain, as Billy said. The data lives off chain, but it's also the reason that oracle providers oftentimes provide randomness, because randomness can also not really be easily generated on chain. So I think you guys also do that. So you can read data from off chain, and you can also oftentimes get verifiable randomness from oracle providers like API3.
Yeah, we no longer do it now with the quantum random number. We used to have it as a 2025. We stopped doing that. Thank you for bringing it up, just in case people ask me on there. But QRNG, which was quantum number random generator, was something that we did with like the Australian university, where they had this huge giant machine that would just do random numbers. That would be like some air suction cup, and like it would be some numbers, and it would, depending where it fell, would be the total randomness of something, and they would provide API data for us to then randomize that data. But it was a public good that became too good, and then we started getting flooded with like tons of support questions. So like something that was done as a free tool became this thing where like we had to really support too many things that really didn't drive our focus for API 3. So we had a sunset in 2025, but another project did take it over. So QRNG still lives under a different name, but we just don't support it anymore. But yes, definitely random numbers is something that we definitely need in the space for sure.
Nice, thanks.
Yeah. So for those that are not familiar with Remix, I think I've already got myself set up here. I have my MetaMask on here. I have my Sonic testnet already ready to go. You're just gonna go ahead and compile. We're using 819. I'm just using auto compile, and we're gonna deploy it. I'm gonna go into my injected provider MetaMask, and you see that it has my custom network 57054. That's my wallet, and we're just gonna deploy it. Let's shoot it. Shoot for the stars, and then confirm. While we're waiting for that, oh, that was pretty quick. Sonic's pretty fast, to be honest. All right, while we're waiting for that, we're going to see if I read the data feed, it's going to say, hey, nah, man, not going to work for you, because we didn't actually tell the contract what price feed we want to read, right? So let's go over to market.api3.org, and it's going to take us to our plethora of markets here. So you can see that we are like literally everywhere, and with testnets as well. So let's go ahead and look for Sonic, and there we are, Sonic testnet. We have tons of assets, like 200 plus data feeds on here. I turned this on the other day, but if we wanted to see the full data feed catalog, you can see like every asset that we have listed here is available for a feed. So like if you are looking to do a feed for your bar lending or some kind of gaming system, we got it. We have LSTs, LRTs, stable coins, the whole shebang on there. But let's just do ETHUSDC for now, and then we'll mess with another one. So you'll see here, when you look at the ETHUSDC, you can see the current price. You can see exactly which ones are giving us the data here and what their feed is. You can actually check the DNS and verify to see what they're pushing on chain, and we aggregate that for you. So you're never guessing where we're getting the data sources from or anything like that. You can see it. It's pretty, upfront about it. And we're the only first party Oracle that does that, right? So you're actually getting data feed straight from the source. Like we are the farmer's market of data feeds on there, so to say. So it looks like my deviation was down. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. So the way that you aggregate this data, does it average it out across all of the different sources, or how does it work?
There's a medium value that it comes up with. Yeah. So all these different values. So there's 258 to 2591, 2589. So they're all within close range, right? And we basically take the medium value of that, and between the medium value of all these sources, this is the value that you get on chain.
Okay, just in case someone was wondering. Thanks.
Yeah, for sure. And then again, like if something looks weird, we check it. If someone keeps, giving me bad information that's too far off the deviation, we kind of cut the source. We're pretty like strict with that, right? Because the value that we get from being consistent and having zero incidents is what gives us kind of our social value, right? So if we start giving bad oracles, it's like, why use API 3?
Yeah, and I think about it like when you have a rocket ship, you have, or even a plane, you have like multiple different engines because if one fails, you have a redundancy for the other ones. That's
Hmm.
sort of it seems like that's sort of what you guys are doing here as well.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah. That way you can actually prove where we're getting it from. There, if we were just giving you a random number, you don't know if you were doing CoinGecko 10 times and if the CoinGecko API went down. Sorry, oops. But yeah, so that's the cool thing about what you can see on the interface. But let's go ahead and integrate that. We want to get our ETHUSDs to our smart contract. So let's go ahead and integrate that. So for now, we're using a generic one. We're going to skip the OEV rewards. We're going to talk about that in the next workshop. But here's the proxy address right here. This is the address we want to use. And this is the code that you need to read it, right? It's a little bit smaller. It's pretty much exactly what we're doing. I'm just doing it where it's a little bit more easier to like understand. So I'm grabbing this snippet right here, and we're going to go ahead and set our proxy address to read this. So I'm going to go ahead and click this, pop it in, set that proxy address. And so now we're telling our smart contract, I want to read ETHUSD. It's pending, and boom, there it goes. And so now if we check our proxy address, we know that we're reading this one. And then let's go ahead and read that data feed. And you'll see 2589 with 18 decimals trailing, and it was last updated at this timestamp on here. So it's pretty straightforward. Let me zoom into that right here. We're going to go geriatric on there and see that there's the price feed. Ta-da! Like really simple to do, right? So let's try to get like wrap BTC, right? So let's go in here and let's go back. We're going to go back to wrap BTC, and you'll notice that it's not live. So let me check it out. Cool thing about this is if you want to activate it, you don't have to ask us whatsoever. You can literally activate it yourself on here. So like if you have a feed, you can't reach the API team for whatever reason, which we're actually pretty accessible. But let's say you just, everybody's sleeping or there's vacation. You want to do this on Christmas morning. You're like, you know what? I need a feed right now for whatever reason. You can do it yourself. So you can go onto the chain that you want. You're going to check your data feed that you want. You can check all the sources. Okay, this is the sources that's coming from. And then you can go into the deviations, right? What do deviations mean? It's basically the price change. So in Coinbase or like Binance or anything, like when you look at a chart, let's just use CoinGecko in here, just as an example here. And I'm looking at the price of Bitcoin. You'll notice like every single tick, every second on the second, it's updating, right? It's like, all right, for every second that's considered, it's updated. If we were to do that on chain, that costs gas, right? So like if we do it every block second, we'd be out of business in about a week, right? Like all the money that it require. So what has happened with oracles is we take, deviations. If the price has changed this much in this amount of time, we'll update the price feed on chain. So we're like pushing that data on chain. So the question is, how accurate do you need to be? And we've noticed over historically with DeFi specifically is like, 1% is a pretty safe range. If ETH goes down 1%, let's say at $2,000, $20, right? If ETH goes to 1980, $20 is not, or $19 is not a big deal to leverage a position if you're doing like a couple million of ETH, right? It's not a big deal to have it exactly at 2015 at the current time. So 1% deviation has become a standard of how you want to work with your deviations. But if you don't really care, you can have a 5% deviation if you have a little bit more flex. And if you need something to be more precise, like perpetuals or anything like that, where you're like 100 time leveraging something specifically, then you would use a much more closer deviation. And they by default have a 24-hour heartbeat. So even if it goes sideways for a long time, it will get updated within 24 hours to let you know that it is alive, right? And that's specifically for like stable coins, right? Like USDC, USDT. They don't really move much from like maybe 0.099999 to like 1.0001.
Some of them do.
Yeah, some do. But yeah, but for the most case, if they don't really change that much, we give you a heartbeat anyway, let you know what, the price feed is still alive. So if there is a depeg event, your DEX or your borrow lending DApp can be safe, right? Because we know that when 24 hours there's a heartbeat that we're still pulsing, right? So anyways, let's go ahead and do a 1% deviation range. That's what we'd buy it. We'll go ahead and purchase it ourselves. And shout out to the market team, because before they used to take like a couple hours to turn on a feed, and now it works now. So now it's live. Now we have a rat BTC feed, same thing, $109,000. Let's go ahead and integrate it. We're going to grab our proxy address, go back to our remix, get this proxy address, change it. So we're telling the contract, hey, I don't want I don't want ETH USDC anymore. We want rat BTC. So I'm going to go ahead and tell it. And that's why I put the only owner, right? Because if anybody in the world could change where the feed of the contract is, then we're in big problems, right? Like if I set a position that has ETH and then they switch it to rat BTC behind my back, major hack, right? So, only owner is there just for good practices. So it has been updated. So when we read the data feed, boom, 109,287 and a whole bunch of trailing 18 zeros on there. And then the last time it was updated. So pretty straightforward, right? You can just grab any price feed from the market, pop it in the set proxy address, read the feed. Really, really simple. So now that we have this basic understanding, let's get into like what other oracles do, right? Let's say you have this great project that you found and it's open source and you love it and you want to bring it to Sonic, but it's set for something that's totally not this setup, right? It's like, oh, I don't know how to do it. I don't want to like pay for this crazy audit again or whatnot. So it's no secret that the V3 interface from Chainlink is one of the most popular ones that read a data feed. So I have this interface right here that basically tells us what the feed is, right? So our API3 oracles are compatible with that. So just to show you, I'm going to go ahead and grab this feed and then check out what it is. Let me check the Sonic one. And I'm just grabbing this and I'm going to grab the ETH USDC just to see it. I'm going to go to the Sonic Blaze testnet and I'm going to deploy this other oracle with it as well. And so let's go ahead and minimize this. I'm going to go into here, contracts. And this one requires us to have something in the constructor. So I'm going to deploy that price feed in the constructor and shoot it out. So like let's say you want to fork Aave and bring it on there, right? They use V3 interface. Let's say you wanted to fork something else and they use V3 interface. No problem. So we have this data consumer contract. I'm going to get the latest answer. And you see that the structure is very, very different than what you saw at API3 oracles, right? You have this answer, which is the price, which is 25,696, right? And then you have this timestamp, right? So those two factors are what you see in API3. And then they have these other pieces of data, which is 178012, and then these round data, like for people that want to do historic data or anything like that to see what round. But you'll notice that those are the same. So I grabbed a Chainlink feed and I dropped it in here, and it gives you what you need. You'll notice that they don't have 18 decimals; they have 8 decimals on here. But let's just say if I wanted to go ahead and grab that ETH USD feed, and I wanted to use, the same code without refactoring it, and I'm going to pop it in here. And so I'm going to go ahead and update that oracle. And you see, like, you could just literally copy it over, and I'll explain some minor details that make the changes. So there we go. I'm going to go ahead and get the latest answer. And you'll notice that it's slightly different, right? There's no round IDs. There's only timestamps started at, and the answer, which is 18 decimals instead of 8. Right? But it does work. You don't have to do anything. So what most borrow lending dApps do is they have something called normalization. Right? So when I have a feed, or if you notice, if you look at all the other feeds out there, they don't all come in 18 decimals like you would be used to. Some of them come in 8, some of them come in 23, some of them come in liquid staking pairs and 6. So like you have like all these random oracle like zeros behind you. So you have to standardize it in your contract, right? So what we call that is normalization. So in order to do something that has any merit, or like, I don't want to say it's good, but if it's good, if it's a good dApp, it'll have normalization in it. Like I would put my money in it. If it didn't have normalization, I wouldn't. So it's one of those things of like, when you're dealing with big numbers, like millions of dollars, right? Especially with flash loans, 18 decimals is not enough to do floating point multipliers, right? We don't have decimals in Solidity. So what a lot of people do, like Aave, Morpho, Compound, is they scale up the values, right? And so they turn it up to like, maybe, what is it? I think Aave does 23 zeros at the end. Morpho does something at 42. But you have these high numbers, and then when you divide, you're not losing zeros, you're not losing decimal points. and then they normalize it back down again, right? So then they can calculate what people can withdraw and do not. Because if you don't do it, you can basically surpass the 18 decimals and then do some hack magic, and then you can drain the vault, right? So any borrow lending DApp or anything that has anything to do with large numbers will normalize it. So don't worry about this, like, oh, Chainlink's 8, API3 is 18. Once you read that feed, you're going to normalize it again with something else. So let's go ahead and do some normalization and bring that example out here as well. Let me normalize this. If you have any questions, though, go ahead and ask away.
I'll check in the comments and come back if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and like post that link for these GISTs in a second, but let me go ahead and normalize that. So I'm gonna paste that down, and I'm gonna put this in the private thing as well. So let me go ahead and put this in the private chat. Boom. Nice. Cool. So that way you can share that normalization. Cool. So let's break it down. I'm going to minimize this just a little bit smaller, and I did it on the wrong screen, so my camera went all small. But let's take it from the top here and normalize it. See, so I'm again using that same interface, the V3 interface, right? You'll see that we have the aggregator data feed, the constructor here for the price feed, the same layout. What you'll notice is that I'm going to normalize this to 18 decimals, right? And so I'm going to update my Oracle source. It's very similar to the other code that we had. I'm getting that original latest round address with the original details, and then it's going to give you back the same round ID, timestamp, and everything. Now I'm going to get the normalized price with data, and it's going to show me with the normalization. So there's a little bit of extra code, basically checking if the decimals are below or if the decimals are above. Normalize every action for me, and then return that data for me. So this is where the normalization happens. Basically, I'm checking the decimals of the Oracle. If you look at the smart contract of an Oracle feed, it's going to have the decimals on there, right? Like in ERC20, it's going to tell you how many decimals are. Like USDC is 6 decimals, and API3 is 18. You have to be able to read the decimals off the smart contract in order for you to do your calculations correctly, or you're going to have a disaster. Same thing with oracles. You got to be able to read the decimals of an Oracle, and so that's why you will basically read the decimal function off the Oracle contract itself, and then you know exactly what you're dealing with. So you will have some kind of form of normalization on here. So let's go ahead and launch it again. I'm going to go ahead and normalize this bad boy into this. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy it with the Chainlink feed, and then I'll do it with the API3 feed. So I'm going to go ahead and throw that in the Blaze and deploy it. I'm gonna wait. It's so fast. I really like it. I actually did a hackathon on the Sonic AI thing. It was pretty fast. Like I did a large deployment of Aave on there, and like it took like a minute. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's super fast.
Yeah. I didn't win anything. I'm salty about that, Lewis. Okay. I didn't win. It was pretty good too. I'll talk about it later. But it's all right. All right. So let's go ahead and look at the get latest answer. And you'll see, back to what we were normally looking at, right? The get latest answer has the round ID answer and everything like we saw in the other one, right? And now we're going to get the normalized one, right? Where I did all the functions on here, and you can see now I've added the zeros, the trailing zeros at the end. Everything else is the same. I just normalized the price feed to meet what my smart contract needs, right? If I want to normalize it to 36, I would normalize it to 36, 42, whatever my math is in my smart contract, I would normalize it. So usually when you're going to production or something, you're going to have to normalize your smart contracts. You look at any big borrow lending DApp, you look at any stable coin on there is a normalization that requires some kind of collateral on there. So that's definitely a practice that you want to have and understand it. And it's purely because of math, right? When we do the big numbers and you start dividing and multiplying, those numbers get lost in the sauce if you're only using 18 decimals. So you scale it up, right? So let's go ahead and throw in the API3 Oracle in here, grab that proxy address, and you'll see that it's basically the same. So you're saying, oh, okay, got it. Doesn't matter what Oracle I use. I can literally, just literally change the Oracle, right? And so when I do that, I'll confirm it, and you'll see that it slightly changes, comes in with the 18 decimals, but when I normalize it, still 18 decimals. And then I can use everything as function. So I can literally just switch the Oracle into my smart contract, and it all works, right? It has all the V3 interface, timestamp, and everything ready to go for you to use. But let's say you're forking over another contract and you need like this data, there's like something in here that needs this data and round ID and all that, no problem, no problem. I got it for you, don't worry. So we have something called the adapter contract here. So I'm going to copy this over as well and do this. And this is something that Balancer does on a few networks for with our feeds. So let me go do the adapter. And so if you're familiar with Morpho or Morpho contracts, I know those are getting very, very popular lately. They actually force you to deploy an adapter to match Morpho feeds. So you can use any feed that you want, whether it's, you know, API3, Chainlink, Redstone, Pith, whatever. The adapter basically does all the feeding for you. So don't be afraid of adapters. They're more common than not. You just don't know what's happening on the back end. So let's look at the code for the adapter. You'll notice that it's reading API3 contracts, right? I'm just calling it API3 adapter, and I'm just creating this address to proxy. When we're doing adapters, it is very, very important to understand that if you have the ability to change the Oracle, it is very, very dangerous, right? Because, you know, anybody can come in and hack it, and then all of a sudden you thought you were reading an ETH-USD feed, and then you're reading the adapter address. So oh, we're cool. But if the adapter has the ability to change addresses, not cool, right? Because now there's a kink in the armor, right? So we make that immutable to make sure that once we deploy this address, it will never change again. If we need to change an Oracle source, we do it from our smart contract, right? We let the DAO handle it. We let whoever's in charge, the curator, whatever, handle it. We don't want to do it at the adapter level. So we just make sure that's immutable. And then we set it in the constructor. And then, you know, I'm trying to mimic this latest round data, right? You're calling the V3 interface. You want to call the last rain data. You're expecting this kind of data to come back. And then if we noticed, if we go back on here and we look at, you know, the original data, right? And we look at this, it's, oh, I changed it. Let's go back to this one here. Forget it. But you'll notice it has a round ID and then everything else is the same, right? And so when we read the data, all we're getting back is like the answer, right? We're getting the price feed and the timestamp, right? We notice that the timestamp and the started at are the exact same numbers on the Chainlink feed. So we just do that, right? The answer is the value, right? That started at is the same time as the timestamp. And if you need a round ID, we're just going to make it a round ID, right? So I'm literally hard coding this round IDs up. So that way it reads, oh, okay, this is what the round ID is. Your smart contract won't fail if it's a 0, and then you can move on, right? And all it's going to do on the back end is just read the API3 data feed right here, and then, you know, give you the data. It's going to stick it in here. We're going to do any typecast that we need, and then give you the data. And that's all the adapter does, right? All it does is just like convert the data, right? It's like when you travel from Europe to like America, you need like a little power adapter. That's all it does, right? It doesn't change anything. It just does the adapter. So let's go ahead and launch this and deploy it. And we're going to do it with the API3 Oracle feed and deploy. There we go. Address proxy and confirm. Ta-da. Okay, so we have the API3 aggregator adapter, and we'll just look at it in here. We can just read it, the what we're going to get, right? So if I read the data, it's the latest round data, the actual price feed of ETH, the timestamp, and then this round data, right? This round data is just matching what I've hard coded here. Oh, let me make that bigger. So it's just doing that, right? So like if you need that in your smart contract and you're trying to fork it, you're trying to bring it to Sonic, we have an adapter too, right? And we have an official one that's been audited by Open Zeppelin Chainlink. So like I'm not just making one up at the fly. The one I'm using as an example is a very, very basic one, but we do have one that is for production on there as well. So now that we have our data consumer, I want to like just make sure that I want to update my Oracle. So I'm going to grab this adapter contract. I'm going to grab this address, right? Because this is now our Oracle. It's kind of like our patch Oracle. And I'm going to update my Oracle for my original data consumer, smart contract. I'm going to go ahead and update that. And then it's going to meet all the standards that we need, right? Like I need that 8 decimals. I need all that stuff because all my smart contract logic has been set to that. And then we're going to get our latest answer. And you'll see that it matches everything we need. We have our round data. We have it down to 8 decimals. We have our timestamp, and we have our answered in round data. So then our smart contract can function as normal. So yes, like that's API3 in a nutshell, kind of showing you different skills that you can do. Like if you find these projects, let's say you're in a hackathon, right? And you found this great open source project and you want to, you want to do something with it, but you don't want to refactor it, right? Time is of the essence. You only have 36 hours, but you want to use API3 oracles. There you go. You have all the code, you have all the repos. Again, if you are someone that likes, VS Code ones, I do have this on here that has all these different scripts that reads that, and it kind of looks more like this, so you can kind of see it live. And if you don't like to copy and paste or remix, I have all these different ones that you can see, and I have it colorful, so you can see, oh, okay, the transaction, here's the round ID, here's the price, chain link format 8 decimals and format 18 decimals. So if you like that, I'm going to go ahead and post the GitHub repo on here. But that's that. That is this workshop one, understanding how to get a price feed to your smart contract, understanding how oracles fit, understanding decimals. This is going to be the foundational information that you're going to need in order to actually like get onto the next step, understanding why choose API3, or why do you need an oracle. People ask me that all the time, like, why do I need an oracle? And I think of it obviously for DeFi, it's the number one thing for sure. But there's also like limit orders, right? Where they're getting it. Some dexes use time weighted average price, and then some need oracles, right? Some want to have it more exact to what they have based on liquidity. And then also gaming, especially during a bull run or a bear market, is very, very important. Let's say I want to sell a game for $50 in ETH or S, right? Well, how much is $50 of S right now? I don't know. My Oracle will tell you, right? And then your front end can then adjust. And then let's say it takes off and like S becomes $20. Well, I still want my game to be $50 so people will buy it, not $2,000, right? So again, the Oracle will tell me what the price is, so I know exactly how much of that asset I need to buy that game, right? So like if I'm selling NFTs or anything, that is kind of what I'm shooting for. Of like, this is why we want external data, so that we can keep things consistent, right? Because like those NFT projects back in 2020, 0.1 ETH, cool. That was cool for ETH at like 1,500. Then ETH went to like 4,000. So like it just basically 4 times the price of what it was, right? Because it wasn't going based on dollar value, it was going based on ETH value. So those different uses for oracles that we have in case. Oh yeah, and let me like paste that GitHub for you for that full
Nice.
workshop one.
Quick question from member. Basically, they're asking, can they use oracles for? And I think you covered it a little bit, but they use oracles for arbitrary data. Like for example, Polymarket comes to mind as an example. Like they get off-chain sort of events that happen in the real world, and then they're able to do something with it. So how would they? Do you provide that? How would people use that?
We do have an open source tool called Chain API. So basically, yeah, like the real world asset stuff is hot, right? Like I know I forget the name of where is their name? Gosh, who powers it? Uma powers it, right? Like we have
Yes, 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 yes.
the system here. Basically, the way we do it is the same Oracle, right? Chain API. It's not really supported by us, but it's an open source project on here. So you can use your own REST API, and as long as you're providing the data, you can bring that data on chain, right? So if I used to do this as an example for like YouTube. Let's say I was a music producer, right? And I say, hey, you know what? Every time your song gets 1,000,000 hits, I'll pay you on chain, right? So I call the YouTube API for that channel, and if I hits 1,000,000 hits, the person hits the claim, it automatically distributes, right? So based on that data, I can get it. The problem with having single points of APIs is single points of failure, right? If that API goes down, it's down, right? If I do fake data, you don't know, right? So that's why UMA has the optimistic oracle, where it's true until someone proves it's not, and then people are incentivized to prove that it's not, right? So that's why their system works. But it's all the same thing. We're bringing off-chain data, bringing it on-chain, right? Real world assets, all that. Like if I wanted to sell a house within my API, with this chain API, I could absolutely do it, right? Well, here's my database, here's my inventory, right? And then here it is. So we're just bringing that off-chain data on-chain. The reason it gets very sticky is with price oracles, and that's why we dedicated everything to it, because every point of failure is dangerous for DeFi, right? We're basically in a multi-billion-dollar section for DeFi. One misreport can destroy everything, right? And we have seen that issue on Polymarket, right? When the president won something, and then they said, and then everybody won it, but then they rolled it back, right? Oh, that wasn't a real president. Here's the real president one, and it was the opposite, right? So people won when they made the first announcement, but then they roll back the announcement, but everybody claimed their winnings, right? So we're like, well, do you claw it back? Right? So there's always problematics with off-chain data and on-chain, but that's something that is an ongoing issue with the Oracle problem, right? So price feeds are our only thing because we get really good and focus on that, and we got really good at that. So yeah, but that if you do want to mess with Chain API, that is using our AirNode system. That again is open source, permissionless. Anybody can do it. You can host it on AWS or Google Cloud, and then have your REST API, and then pull your database information from that, and then pull it, right? And that way, it's kind of a trust me, bro, kind of thing. Like, hey, trust in my API, trust in my data, and I'm bringing it on chain, right? So, but it's usable. And again, I use it for a lot of fun things of just pulling API. You can do racing data, MMA data, anything that you can get an API for, you can basically bring that data on chain.
That's amazing, dude. Like, this has been such an interesting and valuable session. I think honestly, there are really interesting use cases for oracles. Obviously, it expands your world into the actual rest of the world that lives outside of the chain, right? So you can think of like anything you want to do with external data, and you need an oracle for it. So API3, Billy, I think one thing I wanted to ask you was, what would you say to builders? And you mentioned sort of your system works with Chainlink standards, but what would you say to people that are starting to use Chainlink, for example, or something like that, as a competitor, or like how do you guys view that? And in terms of like, what do you offer that's differentiated?
Yeah, so like that actually going to be in the second workshop, and I'm glad you brought it up. What a segue,
Okay,
right? So
nice.
every oracle gives you a price feed. They're all great at what they do, right? Chainlink is a pioneer in this space, and like in DeFi summer 2020, like it was like they really took off. And API3 was actually founded by ex Chainlink data providers. They wanted to create a marketplace. They saw a gap in how things can expand quickly and provide different feeds and whatnot. So they basically forked off and created API3. Why you would use API3 versus Chainlink today is we actually pay you. So if you have a borrow lending app, right, and people leverage their positions all the time, right? I deposit wrap BTC, deposit ETH, borrow stables, and I max leverage it, right? And then let's say we have a 10% crash, and then you see on Twitter or X, so and so $1 billion liquidated in the space, right? You as a DApp get absolutely zero out of that, right? Your Aave, your compound, whatever, you have to pay the 5% penalty fee for the liquidators to be incentivized to do something, right? So the way it's worked, MEV botters have always won. The validators, bribes goes to the validators. With us, you get the same thing as a price feed, but if someone is willing to use OEV and bid on the OEV, instead of bribing the validator, they are bribing the Oracle provider to give you the most updated price feed. Remember how we were talking about deviations like 1%, 5%, 0.25%? The only reason we care about those deviation prices is because if we want to liquidate or we want to do something financial with it. So if there is an opportunity for me as a searcher to then be able to say, hey, on chain ETH price is $2,000, let's say, and then CoinGecko and like the average price is like 2010, and I can liquidate this guy at 2010, but it's not going to update till it gets to 2020. So I have to hope and pray that ETH goes up $10 more for me to do the liquidations, and that updates on chain. But if I have OEV, I can bid for the right to update that Oracle for 2010, bring that price feed down on chain, and that bid goes to you. So you're actually generating more revenue. So you can use any price feed. They're all good. But when you get liquidated, you get zero. And with API3, you'll get something. So it's a new revenue model. That's why it's like, people are like,
Reminds you of
possible,
PM.
right? Right. Yeah. So
Yeah.
like, why would you not use API3 oracles is the question, right? Like, I know everybody has their brands and brands have value, but you have new forms of revenue. And we have an actual OEV dashboard of like how much money we've made. Everybody that's done it. Compound uses us. I think Yay Finance on Sonic has made tons of money with it. They love it. Like everybody that uses us and they gets money are happy. Like they're loyal customers forever.
Exactly
Yeah.
the same thing with apps that migrated over and they now get VM revenue, which is just another revenue stream that Sonic has that other chains don't. It's sort of the same sort of situation. That's super cool. You guys are the Sonic of oracles.
Yeah. We wrote the white paper 2 years ago, and there's tons of people, like, they see that it's working, and they see that it's another source of revenue for them and us. So they are creating their own versions of it. I'm pretty sure that everybody's going to hit it up, but we built it into the Oracle. We don't use wrappers. We don't use third-party services. We don't do partnerships. Like, that could go bad. It's literally built into the Oracle itself. So, like, it's, I think, one of the most safer ways to do it. And we don't depend on anybody. It's API 3 system. So yeah, if you don't update,
That's
it's business as usual or anything. So yeah, so
super
it's like,
innovative. Really,
yeah,
really
yeah,
cool mechanism. Yeah.
available on every chain, right? Like, sometimes it's only available on mainnet with something, or only available, like, we're on
Yeah.
every chain. We're live. We're live. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Dude, like thanks so much for sharing all the info. And I think that like this is going to be really, really useful for archival and for people in the future, looking back at this, trying to figure out how to integrate with API 3. I think really the examples were like very few lines of code, super dead simple. And I think people can build really powerful stuff using this. So I think looking forward to workshop 2, hopefully it's going to be as interesting as this one or more. I probably will be. And just real quick, so for people who are watching, we do this again whenever Fridays are available, with respect to sort of events and everything going on. We try to highlight builders every week as much as possible, and different infrastructure providers, protocols, etc. This week we have obviously Billy Jitsu from API 3. It's been an incredible, incredible 1 hour, and thanks for sharing all your knowledge. If you can just plug whatever you need to plug, and just hopefully look forward to the next one, guys, and I'll keep you guys updated on Twitter. I'm sure you will too. But Billy, what are your handles, and then what do you want to shout out?
Oh yeah, for sure. Again, I am Billy Jitsu with the underscore on X, Billy Jitsu on Telegram, just straight Billy Jitsu, no underscore. Definitely follow API 3 DAO on there for any updates or any news updates. But I usually retweet it anyway. I'm usually like, just throwing whatever they pop out, I'll retweet it on there like a good contributor should. But yeah, again, my approach was, I don't want to just give you the basics and be like, all right, peace, bye. Let's get deep down to it. Like, don't talk about it, show me how. And so the next one is going to get deep into, like, what I was talking about, OEV, push and pull oracles. What are the differences? And then how, we update an oracle. We're going to do it live. I'm going to use real money. I'm going to use, use S, and we're going to like do it live on there. So, if you like live content, or if you like things that could go wrong and then me stressing, that's perfect. So on the next one, whenever we schedule it out, it'll be good. Yeah. Yeah. Everything goes live. Yeah.
Nice,
So
dude.
yeah, and
Okay,
hopefully it's
awesome.
not too boring. That's gonna be good.
No, this was amazing. This was super engaging. You're awesome, awesome presenter. Thank you so much, and hopefully see you next time.
Yep.
Take care.
Got you guys.